ومرحبا بكم في برنامج On Africa. أقف الآن في القصر الرئاسي بالعاصمة الأوغندية كامبالا لمقابلة أقوى سيدة في أوغندا، سيدة أوغندا الأولى جانيت موسيفيني، وهي وزيرة التعليم والرياضة أيضاً. وسيدور الحديث حول سبل دعم العلاقات والتعاون بين مصر وأوغندا وجهودها المبذولة لتحقيق التنمية والتحديات التي تواجهها والحلول المطروحة. مرة أخرى أهلا ومرحبا بكم في برنامج On Africa. Honorable Janet Museveni, the First Lady of Uganda and Minister of Education and Sports, thank you so much for joining On Africa.
It is my pleasure.
Thank you. Uganda celebrated the 28th anniversary of Heroes Day on the 9th of June 2017, and actually On Africa was there to cover. Your Excellency, please first allow me to congratulate you on Heroes Day.
Thank you.
What does Heroes Day mean to you, being married to President Yoweri Museveni, a freedom fighter?
Heroes Day reminds us of the sacrifices the people of Uganda have made for the liberty and the freedom that we enjoy as a country now. Many of our people had to fight so that we can live in freedom. And so we celebrate that day in memory of that achievement. And it reminds me of that.
Uganda has been called the Pearl of Africa and is still recognized as the Pearl of Africa. And I understand that it was Winston Churchill who made the phrase popular when he wrote his book entitled My African Journey in 1908 after visiting Uganda in 1907. What would you tell Egyptians and the world about the Pearl of Africa?
The Pearl of Africa is a beautiful part of the African continent. It's in the heart of Africa. And it's blessed with a lot more than many countries around us. It has the fertile soils. It has a lot of lakes. It is the source of the Nile that the Egyptian people know so well. And it's a beautiful country. We have 2 seasons of rain every year. We can grow food twice in a year. We are supposed to be the food basket of the African continent. We have not done so well with agriculture, but if we tried, we could do that. So I can't say everything I feel in my heart when I talk about the Pearl of Africa, but that's a summary of it.
I understand that you're from the Ankole tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been all over Uganda with On Africa, taking video shots of Ankole cows.
Okay.
And I'm very much impressed because when I looked at the cows, it reminded me of Hathor, the goddess of love and beauty in Egypt, because she wears a headdress with the same horns of the Ankole cows. Yes. And I think President Museveni knows much about this.
Right.
And talking about cows, I understand that you have 20 million cows today in Uganda. How important are cows for Ugandans?
We have many communities in the country that traditionally lived by the taking care of cows and living by the cows. They traditionally just lived on milk and the blood of the cow, and they were not eating food for a long time in our history. They started eating food very recently. So the cow was the lifeline for that community. But now a lot of culture has changed. Most people who like cows keep them and take care of them. But there is a component of our society that still keep the Ankole cow because it's their traditional cow and they value them and they love them. And my husband comes from such a family. And so he loves cows a lot.
I understand that he has a lot of cows.
Yes, he does.
Right. Talking about Ankoli cows, when I interviewed the Ugandan Minister of Tourism, Professor Ephraim Kamuntu, I suggested if at one point you can have Ankoli festival in Egypt.
Yeah.
It will be really very impressive, extending and supporting cultural ties between Egypt and Uganda. What do you think of this idea?
I think it's a beautiful idea. I think we probably have a lot of connections with Egypt. They must have some connection with that ancient Egypt and the pharaohs. And so to renew that contact would be ideal for us as a generation of people, both from Egypt and from Uganda. And the young generations can learn that history and learn to cherish and to want to know each other more. So I think that's a very good idea. Through tourism, we can make that connection.
I hope it happens.
I hope so too.
Talking about cows, to what extent is it important for Uganda to export meat?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we want to export meat. We have many abattoirs now in the country, and we know that our beef from the Ankoli cow is a very good beef. It's been proved scientifically, and so we want to start exporting meat, perhaps even to Egypt.
This is excellent. You actually have an abattoir right now, an Egyptian abattoir here in Uganda.
Okay.
Yeah, this would be great.
Good.
I, Janet Kataha Museveni, swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Uganda, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. So help me God.
You have been the First Lady of Uganda since 1986 and the Minister of Education and Sports since 2016. Why did you accept becoming the Minister of Education and Sports beside being the First Lady of Uganda?
Because I am a servant of the people, and every time I'm called to serve, I take it as a calling. And it doesn't matter, being a First Lady is merely a spouse of the President, but I'm also a Ugandan, and I know that Uganda has a role for every Ugandan to play. And if I'm called to serve with the Ministry of Education, where I believe I can make a difference, I'm humbled to do that, and that's why I come to serve as a Minister of Education.
Your Excellency, it is said that if you want results for a year, plant maize. If you want results for a decade, plant a tree. And if you want results for a generation, educate people. Mm-hmm. What would you tell us about improving literacy rates in Uganda, especially among women?
We want to see Uganda really become what it was destined to be. And we know that education can play a major role to do that. And so this government is offering a universal education both at primary and secondary level, so that all our children of school-going age can get education. But we also do literacy education at the village level for adults, for women and men who want to learn to read and write, so that we can get our country really to be literate. And we do that deliberately because we believe that this is something we should have achieved a long time ago. We didn't because we had challenges in our society, but now is the time.
Do you think that Uganda is more ready now for investment and development after improving literacy rates?
Yes, of course, I think that. I believe that because this country has security of human life and property, and it has a literate population, we can very easily attract investment, and we really go out deliberately to attract foreign and regional investment, because we need that, and it's also good for our region and for those people who come from elsewhere to come and invest in Uganda. There are many opportunities here yet to be explored, and we want to see that happen.
So what are the business and investment opportunities in Uganda? And please let me inform you that we love shea butter from Uganda. Really, we do.
I am pleased to hear that.
And moringa oil too.
That's good.
Yeah, so what are the business opportunities and investment opportunities in Uganda from your point of view?
There's so many opportunities. We have so many resources that we have been exporting raw. Now we want them processed in the country so that we don't have to export coffee in its raw form, or cotton, or tea, or gold, or silver, or so much. So we want all that processed in the country so that our people can be able to access their own materials that are made in Uganda, and we invite people who have those skills to come and do it here with us.
So is this the next step that you're working on, that everything should be made in Uganda?
This is what we're actually doing right now. It's not the next one, it is actually happening right now. You talk about the abattoir.
Yes, yeah.
It is in part of what we're doing.
The Egypt-Uganda abattoir.
Right.
So it is a win-win solution. I would like to ask the Minister to inform General Field Marshal Sisi that we want more investors from Egypt. All this road from Kampala to Luero, I want it to be factory.
It's a great pleasure indeed for me to represent the government of the Arab Republic of Egypt in such a distinctive occasion that reflects the true bonds that exist between the Arab Republic of Egypt and the Republic of Uganda. The inauguration of the meat export hub today is a practical translation of the cordial and brotherly relations that exist on both edges of the Nile, topped by the relations that exist between His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni.
After more than 4 years of planning, implementation, and hard work in this project, now we have the biggest export meat hub in East Africa and the region.
What are the guarantees and incentives that Uganda is offering to investors, foreign investors?
Now I'm going to invite you to go to the Investment Authority to hear about all the incentives and all the opportunities for investment and for business, because we have packages that are already prepared for investors. But I really would like you to go to the Investment Authority, where you will get all of them, because they're there and they're more there is more information and they're more knowledgeable to talk about that area than myself.
We will. Now, cooperation between Uganda and Egypt has mostly been between governments, government to government, and has focused on capacity building. In the area of education, for instance, I think you've been working with different universities, Alexandria University, Cairo University, and Al-Azhar University. What more cooperation is expected in the near future?
Yes, we have been actually accessing some scholarships from Egypt, and we value that and we're grateful for that. But now we want to go an extra mile and do skills development, and we think we have so much to learn from the Egyptian people. I have talked to your ambassador about that. I think you have a very rich experience in Egypt. So we would like to get instructors for skills which can be about processing any of all those things I talked about. I know that you have skills that do real estate, for instance. You are known for the ancient pyramids that you built such long time ago, and they have been there, and those are skills that you have, that you had before anybody could imagine that possible. We want to process our gold, we want to process our silver, we want to, and I know that you have those skills in Egypt and many more, and road construction, for instance, and we want to build the railway, and so we want instructors who will instruct our young people in our universities to be able to do that work, that kind of work. And we want to partner with Egypt, where they have the skills. We would like to learn from them, and whatever we have that they admire, they're welcome to come here and learn from us. That's what cooperation is about.
I was told that you like gold and silver handicrafts from Egypt. To what extent is this true?
I admire what I see. I also admire those who do that work by hand. That's why I want to see our children do what the Egyptians do. And recently there was a program on CNN about your jewelry, and I think some of it is ancient, really, but we need to learn to do that, because we have the gold right here, and we sell it raw, in its raw form, and we have silver, but we want to now process it. That's why I admire what Egyptians do.
Thank you so much. Karamoja is a region in Uganda. You were Minister for Karamoja Affairs from 2011 to 2016, and you were focused on having people produce their own food. What would you tell us about your experience in Karamoja, and how can it be replicated?
Karamoja is a beautiful place, and it has vast land. It has a small population with a big land area. And when it's green, it really looks ready for agriculture. So I would like us to partner with people who can come and process our food. Indeed, I was encouraging the Karamojong to grow their own food. But if we can have investors who would come and process that food, we would sell that food in the region. There are many people neighboring Karamoja. Kenya is just across the border, and Sudan is across our northern border. And so we could process the food and sell it to that region. So we could do that with the Egyptian investors if they're there.
This is excellent. And in terms of cattle breeding, I think Karamoja is very much known for this too.
That's right. The Karamojong have a different breed of cow.
Not Ankole.
Not Ankole. Their cow is called Zebu cow. They have shorter horns and sometimes no horns at all. But they are cows, yes, and they are a traditional cattle keepers. They have lived by the cow all their lives. They still do, many of their families. So you can also do abattoirs there and process meat and skin.
You know, Your Excellency, you have a problem in Egypt because with the cows, etc., with the meat, etc., of the cows, because your cows, they walk for a very long distance to Sudan before they reach Egypt, and by the time they reach Sudan, they have developed muscles.
Muscles.
Yes, and when you eat cows with muscles, it's not really tender.
That's why they don't have to walk.
Yes.
We have abattoirs, so they do the meat right there in Karamoja. The cows don't have to walk through Sudan to Egypt.
I was told 4,000 kilometers, which is a long distance.
Yes, of course, but that's why we have abattoirs, so that we export meat. We don't take walking cows to grow muscles.
Again, what would you tell us about your experience in Karamoja? Was this a difficult experience? Because I understand that you were selected by President Yoweri Museveni to become the Minister for Karamoja Affairs. Was it a difficult experience? Is it true that it was difficult to find a Minister for Karamoja Affairs and that's why he selected you?
Yes, it was, because Karamoja was a very difficult area for a long time. And it was isolated, and it is a long distance from, the capital. But it was not a difficult experience for me. I also happened to come from a cattle keeping culture, Ankole, and I loved the Karamojong. I made many friends there, and I enjoyed my time when I was there. And so it was not really a difficult place to be and work.
How did you improve their standards of living?
I know the people. I understand their needs. I care to discuss their challenges with them, and so we change things together. I don't change things for them. We discuss them, and all human beings want to live well, and they have ideas, and so we work together to implement their ideas, and that's what I did.
Talking about food security, what do you think of Operation Wealth Creation?
I think it's a very good initiative, and I pray that it can be well implemented. If it is well implemented, it can change a lot in our communities. So the challenge is how we do it. And I hope that we will do it as we ought. Then it will make an impact in our rural communities.
How can Egypt and Uganda cooperate in the area of agriculture, which is still the future of Uganda?
That's what I just said about Karamoja. The cooperation is because we want, our government encourages our people to do the work that they can do, like growing food. And our partners who come from elsewhere come, and we encourage them to do the processing of our food so that we can export food. So that's what we can do with Egyptians. If they are willing to come and hold hands with us, they can do the processing, and we do the growing of food, and it's a win-win situation.
I visited one of Uganda's groundwater wells for drinking water, And actually, I met the locals there. And this groundwater well was built by Egyptians. And when I met the locals, I met girls, and they said that it was a problem for them before having the well, because they walked for a long distance to fetch water. And now they are not late to school anymore after digging the well. So what would you tell us about this? They were actually requesting on camera, requesting more groundwater wells.
It is good to have water wells. Indeed, it helps girls to not have to walk to fetch water. It also helps communities to drink clean water. So it is a good initiative to help rural communities who still have water from the well. And it changes a lifestyle, because it is, we want our people to live modern lives. And with modern life, you need clean water, you need water that is accessible close to where you live. So those wells are good for our people.
To what extent is education in Uganda focused on countering violent extremism?
We have what we call patriotic clubs in school. Patriotism, you know what patriotism means. It teaches children when they are still young to love their country, to love their people, to be willing to sacrifice for their country, meaning to serve the very weak, to serve the vulnerable, to work with their hands and serve their country. And that helps to change a mindset that would do extremism, which really means destruction of life. Instead, you want to support life and to support good living. That helps our children to know as they grow that they need to do whatever it takes to love their country and work for it.
If you mention the word Uganda to Egyptians, the first thing that might come to mind is football.
Okay.
Okay, and you're the Minister of Sports. The Africa Cup of Nations is one important arena where Egyptians and Ugandans meet, and of course the whole world watches them playing football. How does Uganda support its national football team, the Uganda Cranes, and to what extent are they good ambassadors of their country?
They're good ambassadors of our country, and we support them by ensuring that they have what they need for sports and for their well-being. And we pray for them to do a good job when they go out to represent Uganda. And they bring pride to younger people because they hold our flag wherever they go. So we celebrate the Uganda Cranes.
I understand that President Mouseveni was a former footballer before.
That's right.
What are the details? I mean, we don't, I just read this about him on the internet.
There are no details because he was a footballer when he was at school. He didn't do football after that, but he still plays with our children and our grandchildren because he loves that as a hobby now.
He has excellent football skills.
Yes.
I watched him on video.
Oh, you did?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, there was
on YouTube.
There was a time he played with the UN Secretary General here in Nambole. He does have the skills. Yes.
Egypt has won the African Cup of Nations 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
How can Uganda and Egypt cooperate in the area of sports?
I think they should learn from each other and support each other. And also know that it's not always a fact that when you play, you must win, because there are times when you must win, but when you lose, you must also accept it. But I think we are learning to become proud of our teams across the region, many African teams that are playing, and it's good to see all of them. And so it would be good to continue to play together and learn from each other.
To what extent is Uganda preparing for the 2018 FIFA World Cup?
They are preparing by learning more and practicing more, because we believe that practice makes perfect. And so they continue to practice and to prepare. We hope that they do well.
I understand that the two upcoming football matches between Egypt and Uganda will be in August and September 2017. And this is in preparation for the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell both teams?
I would say just do your best, and we'll continue to pray for you.
You are the founder and patron of the Uganda Youth Forum. Africa's population is about 1.2 billion people. Africa is a continent of young people. How are you dealing with young people here? To what extent are they an asset for Uganda, and how is Uganda preparing them?
Uganda is preparing our young people by teaching them to work and to know that they are required to work for themselves, for their families, and for their country. And we teach them to be God-fearing. We teach them to practice, to protect themselves from catching diseases that can destroy their lives at an early age. We want them to live disciplined lives, and that's what the Uganda Youth Forum actually does a lot, because young people sometimes in these times they don't get places where they can go and ask questions and get answers, because their parents are busy people, and the old people are living very far away from them, and the culture has changed a lot. So sometimes you find young people don't get places where they can go and learn how to live decent lives and to be disciplined people. So the Uganda Youth Forum makes itself available to help the young people to really learn what to do, to live, so that they don't just live as trees, so that they can fulfill their destiny in life.
I've been talking to Ugandans, to young people in Uganda, and I asked them, what would you like me to ask the First Lady of Uganda? And they said, creating jobs and being better paid. What do you think of this?
I know that many of our young people need jobs. I know that we have a challenge with job creation. And that's why I'm talking about skills development. Because many go to university, they're qualified, they come out, and they can't be employed. So we think that they now need technical skills which can make them employ themselves and create employment for others. That's what we are now doing in the Ministry of Education. We really want to put emphasis on skills development so that our young people can go an extra mile by training themselves to work with their own hands so that they can employ themselves and create employment for others instead of going out to look for work.
Your Excellency, you went into exile in 1971 and you got married to Mr. Yoweri Museveni in 1973 in exile in Tanzania. What would you tell young Africans about your experience and about leadership?
I tell them, I do actually tell them that that was a time that taught us about leadership and what it really means in its essence. It means sacrifice. It means being willing to serve others and not yourself first. And that's what we learned at that very early age. We were young and we were not living in our own country because Uganda had problems at that time.
You lived even in Sweden too?
Yes, we lived in Tanzania, we lived in Kenya, and we lived in Sweden. When we went to Sweden, my husband was not even living with us. I was with the children alone. But that is an experience that really made our foundation of knowing that we are called to serve. If we want a nation to be in peace and to live well, we shouldn't expect others to do that. We should be willing to do that ourselves. And that's why we have not stopped working and making ourselves available always to serve our country so that Uganda can be a much better place than it was when we were younger.
What are the objectives of the Uganda Women's Effort to Save Orphans, USO, which you founded in 1986, and how was it shaped by your experience as a refugee?
The Uganda Women's Effort to Save Orphans was founded precisely to do what it's called, to save orphans, because we had many orphans at that time who were coming back after a war time, and many families had been separated, and there were many children living in what they called reception centers with no support, no help. And so I founded that organization with other women of Uganda so that we can take care of those children who had lost their parents. And we were fortunate to be alive, and I thought that to show gratitude to God that we didn't die, we were supposed to do something for somebody else. And so we founded that organization to take care of those children, and we did. And it's still there, it's still working with vulnerable children, sometimes orphans, sometimes street children, sometimes any of the children who are living in difficult circumstances.
Egypt celebrates Orphans' Day every year, and to my understanding, the Egyptian embassy in Uganda celebrated Orphans' Day in March 2017. How can Egypt and Uganda cooperate in this area?
By doing just that.
Will you at one point do Orphans' Day, or what expectations, how can Egypt help support USO?
By working with us to support those children. But you see, my belief essentially is that we need to help the orphans so that they are not always orphans. And I would like to see a Uganda in future that doesn't have those vulnerable children. We always used to say that USO will be a temporary organization because we will take care of the children who are in difficult circumstances, and we will finish that so that the children won't always be in difficult circumstances. But unfortunately, there are still children in difficult circumstances. There are still children losing their parents, and others living very badly. And so we find ourselves having to work with them, continuously. But it is our hope and prayer that all children can really be empowered to live normal lives, and that families can be lifted up so that we create a nation and a world where children don't have to live always in difficult circumstances.
You became involved in the HIV and AIDS campaigns in Uganda in the 1990s. How successful were efforts to end the AIDS epidemic in Uganda?
We have not ended it yet, unfortunately, but we fight against HIV and AIDS. We educate our people, our population, to protect themselves, because we know that people can actually protect themselves from catching HIV and AIDS and live without it. But some people live reckless lives and they catch HIV and AIDS. And so we still work against that. But recently I was working with women to try to protect mothers from transferring HIV and AIDS to their newborn babies. And we did a very good job with that, because we got a big reduction. So many babies are now being born free of HIV and AIDS. And we continue with that campaign so that more women who have babies know that they can actually protect their babies, and babies can be born from a couple that is both living with AIDS, but the baby can be born without. And that's a campaign we're still doing. We'll continue to do that, and we continue to pray and hope that we will be able to have a day when we will celebrate a generation free of HIV and AIDS.
This is excellent. Is the education system focused on preventing the disease?
It is. We are now producing a policy framework which we will use to educate all the schools and all the young people about how to protect themselves from HIV and AIDS. Yes.
You're the founder of National Strategy for the Advancement of Rural Women in Uganda. How successful has this NGO been?
It's been successful in its own way, and it's done some work with rural women for a long time. But I must say now we had to change their program and work with women to help them to access credit from banks so that they can be able to invest in their small projects at home. And so they were working now in one area where I was a member of parliament. So it wasn't focusing on the whole nation for rural women anymore. It was putting emphasis on my constituency, where I was serving as a member of parliament, and helping women to learn to save their money and also to access credit where they needed it. So they sort of changed their paradigm.
You're the patron of the Safe Motherhood Initiative of the Ministry of Health and WHO. What would you tell us about maternal mortality in Uganda, and to what extent can you cooperate with Egypt? Do you need Egyptian doctors around?
Yes, actually, we did get some doctors at one time. The predecessor of your ambassador now helped us get some doctors in that district where I was a member of parliament also. But I think they had problems with language because our people don't speak Arabic and our rural people also don't speak English, so they need people who can speak to them in their mother tongue. And Egyptians couldn't speak the mother tongue, so there was a problem there, and they had to go. But in urban centers, they can work with our people, and yes, if they can come, we will appreciate them.
You published an autobiography titled My Life's Journey in 2011. What would you tell the viewers about your life's journey?
I would encourage the people to read my book, because my book tells that story. I can't go into telling them about my life's journey because it's a long story.
In a nutshell, Your Excellency, just 2 sentences.
In a nutshell, it tells my story about how I lived as a child and how I grew up and how I walked to school and when I grew up, where I had to live because Uganda had problems, and where I lived as a young mother, and it's a long story, and how I got into politics because I was really not a politician. I am not a politician even now, but how I got into government and all that, it's in my life's journey, and I would really encourage people to read it.
To love and comradeship.
What message would you convey to the first ladies of Africa?
That we are a blessed people, that Africa is a blessed continent, and that we have so many resources in our continent. We need to utilize what God has blessed us with so that we lift up Africa, so that it doesn't become a place to always look for sympathy and look for support and look for help, because we can do so much, and that we have a duty to the global community. Africa can do so much to make an impact in the world, because there is ever so much we can do that the rest of the world probably can't anymore, because there are challenges also in the world that we could help to do something about. So I would like my colleagues and the people of Africa and the mothers of Africa to know that we are here for a purpose, and we need to fulfill our purpose indeed, and to make a difference in Africa, to make it what it was meant to be, and that is to bless the world, and we can do it. And all we have to do is pray and work hard.
And what would you tell Egyptians watching us right now on Africa?
I'd like to tell the Egyptians that they should know that we are brothers and sisters in this continent. We want to get to know each other more, to cooperate in our work, to lift up our continent, and to be proud of where we come from. Thank you.
Honorable Janet Museveni, the First Lady of Uganda and Minister of Education and Sports, thank you so much for joining On Africa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.